The movie begins with two men harvesting honey. Teddy explains that most of our food is pollinated by bees and that worker bees constantly gather food. However, he says bee colonies are now being destroyed by agro-corporate overlords who manipulate the food chain. Teddy adds that he has studied and observed this problem, discovering that they are choking and poisoning the bees. He believes these overlords are steering the ship and he and Dawn are training for the cause. Meanwhile, Michelle, the CEO of a multinational company, goes about her daily routine, practicing judo, boxing, running, and exercising. Teddy and Dawn believe people are controlled by these overlords whom they suspect to be aliens, and they train to take back control. One day, they walk to a store where Dawn asks if the people around them are aliens. Teddy says they're fine, but mentions there are signs to look out for. At the same time, Michelle goes to her company for work. Dawn and Teddy visit a pharmacy, buy some ropes and other items, then go shopping for clothes. At home, Teddy tells Dawn that he needs his help in this mission, calling him his best friend and says he's doing it to save him. That night, Dawn confides that he wants to be with someone in the future, but Teddy tells him that emotions are controlled by the brain. It's all neurons, and says one must harness them and be the master of their own mind. Dawn believes everything Teddy says. Teddy then gives him an unknown injection. Meanwhile, Michelle goes to her office where she gives an interview about inspiring a new generation of engineers, biologists, and doctors to empower people of different identities. Later, she leaves her office in her car. Teddy and Dawn hide in the bushes waiting for her. As she arrives, they follow her, but Michelle, who knows karate and boxing, fights back and beats them up. She tries to run away, but slows down after seeing an injection in her leg and falls. They kidnap her in her car. As they drive away, Teddy tells Dawn to remove Michelle's hair, suspecting a GPS tracker might be hidden in it. Dawn shaves off all her hair while she's unconscious and burns her hair in mobile phone. Later, Teddy claims she's an alien, pointing to her narrow feet, cuticles, and high hair density as proof. They apply a cream all over her body, and Teddy says her nervous system is different from theirs, though her body appears human. Both dress up in suits, and Teddy tells Dawn he'll do most of the talking and instructs him to stay quiet. When Michelle wakes up, she's disoriented and doesn't understand where she is. Teddy tells her they work for the human resistance and suspects she's an alien. Michelle asks why her hair was cut, and Teddy explains it's to prevent her from contacting her ship. Michelle warns them that the police and FBI will search for her within 24 hours, saying she's a key corporate executive. She urges them to reconsider, assuring that kidnapping her won't benefit them and advising cooperation to avoid danger. Teddy accuses her of being a high-ranking official of the Andromeda Court, helping her species enslave and destroy Earth. He demands that she summon her mothership in Superiors. Michelle insists she isn't an alien, but Teddy points to her Andromedan code on Instagram and says number 45-year-old human could have such flawless skin. Michelle replies that her appearance is due to diet and therapy. Teddy gives her a recorder and demands a statement telling her superiors to leave Earth by nightfall, accusing her species of killing her mother, co-workers, and bees. He acts professional and leaves. Michelle begs them to stay while Teddy and Dawn celebrate their accomplishment. That night, Michelle is distraught and crying. Teddy insists she's not human and that she's evil. Dawn says she's trying to gain his sympathy and reminds Teddy they have 4 days until the lunar eclipse, the deadline for sending her species away. A flashback shows Teddy's mother, who tells him people have been feeding her poison to manipulate her cells and blood for the mind control industry. She says she's doing it for him and begins to float in the air. The next day, Michelle applies the cream Teddy gave her, while Teddy rides his bicycle through the neighborhood. A police officer named Casey, an old friend, stops him, asks if he's okay, and encourages him to stay out of trouble. Casey also asks if he's still with Dawn and tells him to stop by sometime. Teddy then leaves for work. During lunch, he sees a news report about Michelle's disappearance on TV. Later, at home, while harvesting honey, Dawn says Michelle hasn't eaten anything. Dawn goes to check on her and overhears Michelle admitting she's an alien. Teddy thinks she's mocking them and tells her to talk to her emperor in her language and order them to leave Earth. Michelle explains she has a physiology degree and thinks he's trapped in an echo chamber, idealizing misinformation from the internet. Her comment enrages Teddy. He breaks a chair in anger. Michelle asks what he wants and says there's no money, rules, system, or sex that can tempt them. She calls him mentally ill, prompting Teddy to slap her. He storms out and screams in frustration in his car. That night, Teddy shows Dawn his computer-rendered version of an alien ship. He claims to have discovered a way to identify aliens and says he'll travel to their ship to negotiate for Earth's safety. Dawn listens hopelessly. When Michelle tries to break free from her chains, Teddy and Dawn return. Michelle admits she's an alien and says she's tired and wants a solution. Teddy ties her to a chair again. Michelle begs to be freed, but Teddy ignores her, turns on the radio, and administers electric shocks, monitoring her pulse and heart rate on a screen as she screams. Dawn tries to stop him and unplugs the machine. A flashback shows Michelle meeting young Teddy beside his sick, floating mother. She explains that their company's product caused his mother's condition, and others like her. Michelle promises that the company will fund his mother's treatment, correct the formula, and cover his expenses. Later, Teddy returns from the market, covers all windows and doors to ensure Michelle isn't seen, and ties her back to the chair before giving her food. During dinner, Michelle asks Teddy about his movement or ideology. Teddy replies, "It's not a movement. He works alone and discovered her during his research." Michelle calls him a purist and says, "Humans are Earth's most admirable creations." When Teddy asks what she admires, Michelle says she admires their work ethic, that humans work without complaint. Teddy compares that to colony collapse disorder, CCD, and Michelle confirms it. She says he believes neonicotinoids, a pesticide her company makes, are killing bees, but argues it's not the pesticides and that bee populations are recovering. She calls his research outdated and says species naturally decline over time. Teddy accuses her of murdering the bees and insists she's an alien. Michelle says she remembers him and his mother and admits their company's opioid medication harmed people, including his mom, but says withdrawing it would have helped. She tells him not to say her name, but Teddy yells at her to stop. Michelle adds she lost her son, too, and says she can help him and his mother. Her words trigger Teddy, who attacks and chokes her. At that moment, Officer Casey arrives at the house. Michelle fights back while Don watches. Teddy hits Michelle with a gun as Casey knocks on the door. Casey says he's investigating a missing person case and wants to ask questions. When he enters, Teddy turns off Michelle's CCTV feed. Casey notes it's been a while since he visited and notices a tied chair. He asks about Michelle, saying her car was seen nearby, but Teddy denies seeing her, claiming he only works for her company. In the basement, Michelle wakes up beside Don. She tells him he could have shot her earlier, but didn't, calling him heroic. She says he knows Teddy is wrong and that Teddy is dragging him deeper into delusion. Don tells her to stop talking. Casey apologizes upstairs for past mistakes, while Michelle warns Don the police are about to arrest them. Don panics and Michelle promises to help him if she lets her go. Don says Teddy is all he has. Meanwhile, Teddy and Casey go to harvest honey. Back inside, Michelle convinces Don to let her go by promising to take him with her in her spaceship. Don says he's ready and asks her to tell Teddy he's sorry before shooting himself. Hearing the gunshot, Teddy kills Casey with a shovel, runs downstairs and finds Don dead. He grabs the gun and demands to know what Michelle said. As he's about to shoot her, Michelle claims she has a cure for his mother. She explains her mother's genetic code is being rearranged and could recover in 4 to 5 years if successful. She tells him there's a bottle labeled monoethylene glycol in her car. Teddy goes to retrieve it, but breaks Michelle's leg before leaving. Alone, Michelle frees herself using Don's keys. Teddy rides his bicycle to his mother's hospital, injects the substance into her and waits. Meanwhile, Michelle finds preserved human body parts, and Teddy's research plastered on the walls. Realizing he's killed many people he believed were aliens, Teddy waits for the medicine to work, but his mother dies. Grieving, he flees the hospital and returns home. Michelle tells him her 75th emperor discovered Earth during the age of dinosaurs. The aliens spread a fatal virus and the emperor, struck with guilt, created new life, humans. Early humans evolved, forming civilizations, but some sought superiority and created genetically modified humans, triggering a thermonuclear war. Only a few survived, rebuilding on the surface. She explains that humans, Teddy's ancestors, continued waging wars, causing genocide and pollution that destroyed Earth. She says she too became selfish like humans, that humans' genes were altered to make them stronger but more cruel. Her species came to eliminate those corrupted genes to save humanity. She says Teddy's mother was chosen as an experiment because she was weak and broken. Michelle tells Teddy she holds the knowledge to save Earth and he breaks down crying. On the night of the lunar eclipse, Michelle and Teddy drive to her office with Don's body in the car. Michelle, wearing a wig, shocks her employees. As she enters, she tells Teddy it'll only take minutes to link her to her spaceship and start the process. She begins typing on a calculator. While Teddy waits, Michelle says it's done and promises they'll even revive Don. Teddy straps a bomb to his waist, not trusting her. Michelle tells him to wait in a closet. She'll press the teleportation button since they can't go together due to limitations. Teddy enters the closet, believing her. But when Michelle presses the button, he explodes. His head hits Michelle, knocking her unconscious. Later, Michelle wakes in an ambulance, but escapes, runs back to her office, retrieves the calculator, enters the closet, and is transported to her spaceship, the same one Teddy had digitally rendered. Aboard her spaceship, her alien peers say they couldn't connect earlier because her head was shaven. They report all experiments on humans have failed with only 2 survivors and a 0% success rate. Michelle revealed as their emperor declares that their time has come as they've lived long enough. She then breaks Earth's ozone layer, killing all humans instantly in aircrafts, malls, schools, beaches, and everywhere else. Every human dies, but the bees continue to live. The movie ends.